Good morning. How are you all today? Thank you for coming to visit with us again today. Welcome to Bible Study with Andre and Betty. We're continuing our studies from the Gospel according to Matthew, and today we will be in chapter 17. And here we're looking at the transfiguration of Jesus. And this is a picture of the future kingdom that will be in earth during the kingdom period, which is the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And that after that 1,000 years, then we go into eternity future. But Jesus is showing three of his disciples what he will be like, and even showing us what Moses and Elijah looks like in their glorified bodies, letting us know that we will be able to recognize each other in the kingdom. And this will occur after the Great Tribulation period. And so in Matthew chapter 17, we begin our reading today, and this is also recorded in Mark chapter 9 and in Luke chapter 9. And it takes all three readings and recordings to get a full picture of what's taking place here. And it says in verse 1, "And after 6 days Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into an high mountain apart, that is, from the other 9 disciples." Verse 2, "And was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light." So in this figure of his glorified body, his face shines above the sun, and his clothing or his robe was as white as the light, meaning it's brilliant. Verse 3, "And behold, there appeared unto them," that is the 3 disciples, "Moses and Elias, talking with him." And in Luke 9, verses 30 and 31, we'll find that they were talking to Jesus about his decease or when he would be crucified. So this is the conversation that Moses and Elias was having with Jesus. And again, Elias is Elijah. Verse 4, "Then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elias." So Peter is putting Jesus on the same level as Moses and Elijah, but he's greater than that. Jesus is God manifest in the flesh. So we will see how this unfolds in verse 5. "While he yet spake," that is, while Peter was yet speaking, "behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. hear ye him. And so we're being told to listen to the words of Jesus because Moses and Elijah wrote of him. So Jesus is not going to say anything different than what Moses and Elijah said about him during their ministry or during their assignment here on earth. So Jesus, the Father says, hear him, and this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Verse 6, and when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were so afraid. When they heard this voice speaking and separating Jesus from Moses and Elijah, they were astonished and they fell on their faces. And Jesus, in verse 7, came and touched them and said unto them, arise and be not afraid. Let's go. Do not be afraid. And we will find in verse 8, and when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save or except Jesus only. In other words, Moses and Elijah had been taken back into heaven. Verse 9, and as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead. And it's recorded in the Revelation of John and in the second epistle of Peter, this same event that they will be talking about when they, after the resurrection and the day of Pentecost, as Peter and John go about their ministry, they will talk of this event, this vision that they saw even before Jesus was crucified. Jesus showed them what he would look like, and also that we, since the disciples recognized Moses and Elijah, that's a testimony that we will recognize each other when we all get to heaven and into the kingdom. And so also in Matthew chapter 8, we read where we will sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom. Verse 10, and his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elias must first come? And the scribes were those who interpreted the scriptures and in the legal form. And in Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6, it is recorded that Elijah would come first and prepare and turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of children to their fathers, restoring all things. So the disciples are asking Jesus, why did they write them, since Elijah had not come at this time? But we'll see later how Jesus responds to their question. Verse 11, and Jesus answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall first come and restore all things. Verse 12, but I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed or they desired. likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. That is, of the religious leaders. John the Baptist had been beheaded, and that the religious leaders didn't believe John. And Jesus says, nor are they going to believe me. And I have to suffer the consequences of the sins of the whole world because men have rejected me and not understood that if I don't pay the sin debt, nobody will be saved. And when he said this, likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then verse 13 says, then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. So if Israel and the religious leaders had believed the gospel of John the Baptist that he preached, the kingdom would have come, because John the Baptist prepared the way before Jesus, and he spoke of Jesus in his teaching and in his preaching. But they did not believe John the Baptist's preaching, nor will they receive Jesus's preaching, and they will crucify him. And now in verse 14, he's going to get back together with the other 9 disciples or apostles. Verse 14, and when they were come to the multitude, there came to him a certain man, kneeling down to him and saying, 15, Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic and sore vexed, for oftentimes he falleth into the fire and oft into the water. So he would convulse and have seizures. And the father of the son we'll see later, had petitioned the 9 to cast the demon out, but they could not because of unbelief. Then the father sees Jesus and asks him to have mercy on him because his son was lunatic. Verse 16, this is where he says, and I brought him to thy disciples, that is the 9, because the other 3 had been up in the Mount of Transfiguration. And I brought him to thy disciples, and they could not cure him. Verse 17, then said Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you or put up with you? Bring him hither to me. Bring your son to me. Verse 18, and Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him. The devil had overtaken this young man's body, but Jesus rebuked the devil, and the devil departed out of the boy. And the child was cured from that very hour. From the moment Jesus cast the demon out, the boy was made whole. And when you read the accounts of this same episode in Mark and Luke, you'll get details that are not mentioned here in the Gospel of Matthew. Verse 19, then came the disciples to Jesus apart and said, why could not we cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. For truly I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. You could not cast him out because of your unbelief. So verse 21, howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. And that is complete abstinence of self-effort. But in the power that faith brings, we can say unto whatever hinders us, be thou cast away, and it shall be moved. And this is talking about genuine faith in the power of God himself. And so now Jesus is going to repeat to them what he first said in Matthew 16 about his death, burial, and resurrection. Verse 22. And while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said unto them, the Son of Man shall be betrayed into the hands of men. Verse 23. And they shall kill him, and the third day he shall be raised again. And they were exceeding sorry. It saddened them to think that Jesus would be done this way and be crucified. And Jesus is he's on his way to Jerusalem to be crucified, and he's going to stop here and come to Capernaum in verse 24. And we'll see the miracle of the tribute money. And the tribute money is the taxes that the Roman government collects from the common people to include the Jews. Verse 24. And when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money would be the publicans, came to Peter and said, doth not your master pay tribute? Verse 25. And he said, yes. So they come to Peter. Instead of going to Jesus, they come to Peter and they ask Peter, does your master pay taxes? And Peter said, yes. And when he was coming to the house, Jesus prevented him or spoke out before Peter did, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? So Peter says in verse 26, Peter saith unto him, of strangers. Jesus said unto him, that then are the children free. So in other words, the children of the tax collectors and the Roman government didn't have to pay taxes in the same way that the people of under the government had to pay. Because then Jesus says, then are the children free from paying taxes. Jesus says, notwithstanding or nonetheless, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast and hook, and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened his mouth, the fish's mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee. So Jesus answered the people's question that they asked Peter about him paying taxes by showing them that he was a miracle worker. And when he told Peter to cast his hook, and the first fish that cometh up, you'll find a piece of money, to take that coin and give it to them for both Jesus and Peter. So this is teaching us the reason for taxes has been validated by Jesus as being a part of the government of the world system. And this is why in the earlier parts of chapter 17, the transfiguration, things will be entirely different in the kingdom that Jesus governs. As in Isaiah, the 11th chapter, when it talks about, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of his government and peace there will be no end. This is the kingdom that Jesus gave Peter, James, and John a vision of in the first part of Matthew 17, Luke 9, and Mark chapter 9. So, but in this kingdom, taxes are paid for the running of the government is paid by the people. But the new kingdom, or the millennial kingdom, the laws of that kingdom will be according to Jesus ruling from the throne of David. And that's when the Davidic covenant will be fulfilled. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for viewing, and prayerfully, you all will send me questions or make comments on YouTube and also Facebook. So you all have a good week and a blessed day and a blessed week. Bye.